In this next breakout session in Track 1, join Himanshu Kathpal, Senior Director, Product Management at Qualys, alongside Etienne Kuijkhoven, Director CISO Blue Team at KPN, as they discuss how to leverage purpose-built sensors to combat cyber threats. Please welcome Himanshu and Etienne.
Everyone. Hi everyone, my name is Himanshu Kathpal. I'm Senior Director of Product Management for Qualys Platform and Sensors. In the last 2 days, you would have heard from Sumedh and Shailesh talk about Risk Operations Center. And in this session, we'll discuss how you can use the purpose-built centers and make them as the backbone of your ROC, and also make them use as your security eyes to combat cyber threats. Your cybersecurity program is only as accurate as the things you can see, measure, manage, and secure across your hybrid environment. This is not just me saying it. This is based on a famous saying from Peter Drucker, where he says that you cannot manage what you cannot measure, and more importantly, you cannot measure what you can't see, and you absolutely will not be able to secure what you can't manage. This is so true in today's hyper-connected environment. As the threat landscape has changed and the ransomware impacts grows for large organizations, it has become imperative for the companies to get an accurate and up-to-date picture of their entire threat landscape. We have been talking to a lot of CISOs, and the number one concern from them is how they can get the comprehensive data collection across all of their risk factors. Today, CISOs, they have a lot of risk sources, such as a data center, cloud resources, AI, workloads, identities, and all of these risk sources contribute to different risk factors. That includes vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, unauthorized file access, endpoint malicious activities, web application risk, and so on. And all of these risk factors are available for CISOs, and they need to combat it in both hybrid environment and across multiple teams. Last but not the least, CISO needs to communicate the risk differently to different stakeholders. He needs to communicate the risk differently to CIO. He needs to communicate it separately to CEO. And till now, every CISO or even us, we are yet to meet a team who loves to patch without reading the KB articles. So CISO needs to provide the exact KB articles and the precise information for his patching team so that they can reduce the risks and they can actually deploy successful patches. In today's hyper-connected environment, the attack surface is expanding. And for these different attack surfaces, you need different kinds of sensors. You need agents, you need external scanners, you need internal scanners, you need API, SaaS connector, and a combination of all of these sensors act as the eyes and ears for your cybersecurity infrastructure so that they can provide your critical infrastructure from getting breached. Now, this is much easier said than done. And the reason why this is not being done in an optimal manner in the environment is because of the organizational challenges at the ground level. Let's talk about some of these challenges which our CISOs have brought up, and we have organized them into the top 1 to 4 section. First is my vendor providing sensors for all of my environment? As per industry analyst firm ESG, more than 69% of the organizations have experienced an attack targeting an unknown, unauthorized, or unmanaged devices. These unknown devices expose vulnerable services and becomes compliance issues. In fact, the same study shows that the cybersecurity infrastructure environment which you're managing is only 63% of the total environment which you will have. Now, this raises the concern. Are my sensors able to first identify all of my assets, which is basically the step 0 of your cybersecurity? The problem becomes more comprehensive and more elaborate for the big banking customers. If you are a banking customer, you will be using some mainframes to manage your financial transactions. And the question arises, is my cybersecurity vendor providing support for Z systems or the other mainframes which are running in my environment? The second major challenge for our customers is, how many agents do I need to install for meeting different cybersecurity use cases? Do I need to have a separate agent for vulnerability management? Do I need a separate agent for policy compliance? Do I need a separate agent for FIM? Do I need a separate agent for EDR? Or can I just have a super agent which can do all of these functionalities? Or I will continue to have to fight with my IT team to deploy one more agent over and over again and continue to spend more, not only from the license perspective, but from the compute perspective as well. The third major challenge for the CISOs is their legacy environment. No matter how much we talk and we try to upgrade to the latest operating systems, upgrade to the latest technologies, which doesn't have vulnerabilities, the reality of the world is every CISO and every organization will still have some legacy systems on which they are running some critical services, and they're just too afraid to move from it. In fact, a lot of the banks in the world still use Windows XP. And Now, if you talk about the vendors, you need to ensure that your cybersecurity vendors are providing coverage for these legacy systems as well. Last but not the least, this is industry-wide problem. If you are using silos tools, if you are using disparate and manual processes, all of these processes will make you spend a lot of efforts, time, and money to make sense out of the data. Having different agents for different functionalities means you require too many people to manage, too many consoles to log into, and it will definitely increase your license costs as well. The last point is, if you're using too many sensors across different vendors, how will you consolidate it, and do you have to pay for the same asset multiple times across different vendors? The challenges are not only from the operational level, but there are challenges from the vulnerability management level as well. So let's talk about cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency. They work for Homeland Security, and they have a list of 1190 celebrity vulnerabilities, which they call it as known exploitable vulnerabilities. Now, Qualys has coverage for 98.7% of it, and the rest 1.3% are for like outdated softwares, which doesn't really matter. But the key point is, 20.64% of these vulnerabilities are for actively exploited networks and parameter scans. What this means is, if we are only on endpoint agent-based approach with your vendor, you will by default be accepting the risk for this 20% of the CISA vulnerabilities, which is just too much to accept. That is why you need a multi-sensor approach. And let's talk about why there is a need for augmenting endpoint agents-based approach. It's not only just based on the CISA vulnerabilities, but if you talk about vulnerabilities from the remote exploitable perspective or the SSL-based vulnerabilities, no matter which endpoint you use, they will have limited coverage for it. Similarly, based on the digital certificate assessment, not all certificates are available in registry, or not all certificate files are present on the end system. So some of your endpoint agents will always miss some of these certificates, which can only be assessed using remote scanning. The third major reason why you need to have multi-sensor approach is cloud environment. Your cloud environment is very dynamic, it's very hybrid. You cannot rely only on agent-based approach or scanner-based approach. For some of your use cases, you always need snapshot or API-based scanning. And the last is CIS benchmarking. On average, CIS benchmarks controls fail for 50% on CSPs. Again, you need multi-sensor approach so that you can not only have complete coverage for CIS benchmarks, but you can also manage those CIS benchmarks using the multi-sensor approach, such as snapshots, API, agents, and agentless. Now let's talk about the Qualys difference and how we do it. When Qualys looked at this problem statement and we wanted to help our CISOs, we extended our platform for it to become enterprise to-risk platform. Now, why we call it as enterprise to-risk platform is pretty simple. We have divided the cybersecurity use cases in 5 different pillars. The first pillar is asset management, where we help our customers to get complete visibility of every single asset which is available in their environment and also externally. Once we have gathered this data is then sent to CMDB so that your CMDB becomes accurate. Once you have identified the assets in your environment, both internally and externally, the second part is vulnerability management. That's the basic part which you need to do, but you need to do it fast. With Qualys, the mean time to detection is as low as 2 hours, and that too with 99.996% sigma accuracy. The third is, since now you have identified the vulnerabilities, you need to patch it. That's obvious. And with Qualys integrated patching with the same agent, you can reduce MTTR by more than 60%. The fourth pillar of cybersecurity which Qualys supports is to detect malicious and suspicious activity on the end system, and how it can extend threat detection and response to endpoints. Last but not the least, all of these data points which are collected by multiple sensors needs to be mapped to a bandit. And you need to present it to the auditor in the language which they understand. All of these 5 use cases in Qualys are powered by the purpose-built sensors. In fact, Qualys has the highest coverage of sensors across the industry. We provide support for more than 12 different kinds of sensors so that you can meet every single use case in the cybersecurity which is possible. I'll provide a brief about all of these sensors. The biggest one is obviously your beloved Qualys Cloud Agent. We have 110 million plus agents deployed worldwide, and they provide real-time global visibility, not only from the vulnerabilities perspective, but also from misconfigurations, patch management, FAME, EDR, and other use cases. On top of it, we have external scanners so that Qualys can provide you an attacker's view. We have local scanners so that you can scan everything which has an IP address in your environment. So if you assign an IP address to your cat, Qualys will be able to scan it for you. The next use case is QGS. Since with Qualys, you will be deploying patches, we want to save you your bandwidth. With Qualys Gateway Service, the device can act as your proxy device as well, or it can also cache the patches for you, so that all the patches which you are deploying with the Qualys Cloud Agent can be cached, and you do not have to download the same patches over and over again across your environment. The next sensors which we have is Qualys Cloud Connectors. So for all the major 5 public cloud providers, we have sensors so that you can automate the inventory of every single asset which is popping up in your accounts. And the same inventory can then be used for managing the vulnerability management scans and policy compliance scans as well. The next is the passive sensors. So if you want to detect all the assets which are running in your environment and you want to maintain a network topology, Qualys provide physical passive sensors. In the morning, we discussed about Cloud Agent acting as a passive sensors as well, so you do not also need to worry about the tabs and where you need to deploy these sensors. The next sensors which we have is offline scanners. So if you have an air-gapped environment, but obviously you would want to scan it, you want to manage it as part of the single platform approach, we have offline scanners as well. You can scan it using the offline scanner and bring those scanners online and send the data back to the Qualys platform whenever you want. The next are snapshot and API-based scan, which are exclusive scan options for your cloud environment, because sometimes you will want to do quick assessment. If the workload is coming only for like few seconds or few minutes, you might not want to install an agent or run the scan remotely on it. Last is SaaS connectors. So if you have SaaS applications such as Zoom, etc., and you want to do security posture management for SaaS applications, Qualys has SaaS connectors as well. The best part about Qualys is the scan resiliency. So if you talk to different vendors, someone will say that agent-based approach is better, someone will say that agentless is better, someone will say that just snapshot approach is appropriate enough for cloud-based systems. But Qualys provides scan resiliency so that based on your use cases, based on your end goals, you can choose the sensor of your choice and use that sensor for most comprehensive analysis in the industry. Now let's talk about Qualys Cloud Agent and what we have achieved in the last 9 years. Over the last 9 years, Qualys has extended the same Qualys Cloud Agent for it to act as a super agent, and it can meet 9 security use cases. It can act as vulnerability management sensor. It can measure your misconfigurations. You can deploy patches with it. You can do file integrity monitoring with it. You can do EDR with it. You can also run custom scripts with it. And as we were discussing in the morning, you can also make the same sensor, which is already deployed across your environment, to act as passive sensor. And at 4:30, we'll be discussing on how the same sensor can provide information about open source software as well. The other major use case of Qualys Cloud Agent is the industry-wide coverage. So if you talk about industry-wide coverage, we have the highest coverage across Windows, Linux, Mac, AIX, Solaris, and we also have coverage which is not known in the industry. For example, Qualys is the only vendor who has coverage for Z-Linux. Normally, customers are spending hundreds and thousands of dollars for managing the vulnerabilities on these Z-Linux servers because everyone is too afraid to just touch it. But Qualys collaborated with IBM and we built a native agent for Z-Linux assets. The best part about the Qualys Cloud Agent is we do not work in the kernel mode. Except for FIM and EDR, the agent works in the user mode. So it ensures that there's no risk of blue screen of that, and there is always a business continuity which can ensure with the Qualys Cloud Agent. Similar to agents, Qualys also provides the industry's widest coverage for the scanner. Now, if you do not have a scanner which is working in your environment, you won't be able to scan with it. Along with the top 5 cloud providers, Qualys has the highest coverage for the hypervisors. It has support for OpenStack, it has support for Nutanix, Red Hat, Citrix, and just last quarter, since we analyzed that a lot of our customers are moving to native containerized environment, we launched a support for containerized scanners as well, so that you do not miss the visibility across any of your environment. I'll skip a few slides in the interest of time. Last but not the least, along with our scanners, Qualys has built native integrations with a lot of IT tools so that you can share all the comprehensive data which is collected by Qualys and send it to your IT teams for faster remediation. For example, we have integrations for ServiceNow, BMC Helix, Active Directory, so that we can get the assets from there into Qualys, and all the assets and all the rich metadata which is collected by Qualys can be sent to ServiceNow and CMDB tools for them to get enriched. We have integrations for real-time monitoring. We have integrations for reporting and ticketing as well, so that if you are collecting the vulnerabilities using Qualys agent or scanners, and now you want to send it to your patching team, with the precise information of what patches to be deployed, what configuration changes needs to be done, and again to the right owner. It can be done using our integrations with Jira and QRadar and Splunk. Last integration is develop, build, and deploy. We also help you to move security to the left so that you can start scanning your containers, you can start scanning your workloads and images, and you can define rules. If any CEF for vulnerabilities or any vulnerability with QDS more than 50 is identified, just fail the build, and all of this whole process can be automated. With that, I would like to invite Etienne on stage. Etienne is a key member of KPN, and he has been leading their journey, the cybersecurity journey, using Qualys and the multi-sensor approach. Etienne.
Hi. Thank you, Himanshu. Hi, everyone. No, click further. Okay, who wants to? This is my end of presentation. No, need to start. I want to take you on the vulnerability management journey we have within KPN. Already started in 2012 and still going on. But before we went to that journey, I want to just introduce myself. I need to take some less time because I need to win time. So, my name is Etienne Kuijkhoven. I'm the director of the Blue Team, where the 24/7 SOC, the CERT, Incident Response and Forensic Investigation, and Abuse is in. And I work for KPN, still moving on again to KPN then. KPN is a telecom business within the organization within the Netherlands. We have 12 million mobile customers and 4.3 million broadband. We are the best mobile network of the world and also of the Netherlands. And we get rewarded for the best sustainable broadband in 2024. And what we are very proud of is we only have almost 10,000 employees. But there's also a complexity in that, in the organizational structure, but also in the infrastructure. That 10,000 employees are divided in siloed infrastructure or siloed business units, and also the infrastructure is very segmented. There's different layers, and it's also in the past we had only an on-premise environment, and during the journey there was incorporated the two cloud environment, Azure and AWS. I will come to that later. In that infrastructure, there are 280,000 assets, divided in 40,000 servers and 240,000 network devices. We are a telecom organization, so that's really challenging, even if it's also segmented in a diverse layered infrastructure and a complex organization. So, going to the journey, what happened in 2012? It's already on the slide. Shit hits the fan. I may not say it often, I have heard, so yeah. But what happened then? We had no vulnerability management. We had no clue about risks because we had no insights and also no measurements. And what happens then? Because you don't know what you don't know. And you have no insight, you don't know what the risks are, and then you get hacked. Who works with a company that, or has experienced it, that the company has been hacked? Can you please raise your hand? Or okay, not a lot. It's quite stressful, and it's not nice. But it was a youngster. Luckily, it was a he. He didn't took any data or we leaked any data, so that was lucky for us. But it was a youngster, and he did it on his attic in his parents' house. His parents were not aware what he was doing there. So at a certain moment, there was police in front of the door, and they were very surprised, or actually in shock, that the police was there and he was arrested. So what did he do? He misused a vulnerability. It was in 2000. It was a vulnerability from 2011, CVE 2011-0923 in HP Data Protector. And if we had at that time Qualys, had Qualys, then we could have found it, that there was a vulnerability on that asset that could be misused, what the youngster did. But we didn't have it, so that was a wake-up call for us. And that wake-up call, that leads to the first step in really going to do something with vulnerability management. And it's mentioned on the slide, Scan Factory. Yeah, that doesn't sound very sustainable. No, it was not sustainable, but it was there. We needed to get insight in what vulnerabilities and what risks we have or had on the infrastructure and on the assets. So what did we do? We created the Scan Factory. There were 4 persons that with all 3 or 4 laptops and running around, literally running around every data center or every building of KPN where infrastructure was. And they were scanning all the infrastructure with the scan laptops by manually. So plugging in, scanning, and that was a weekly cycle. Monday morning they came in the office, offloaded the data, the scan data of the week before, re-imaged the scan laptop, get a schedule for the week, go out, and there was an in-house built tool called SRT, Security Regie Tool in Dutch. And that tool gathered all the information, did some analysis on it, and realized some Excel sheets that were brought to the technical teams by stream leads. So, what I already said, it's not quite a sustainable solution. So we need to find a solution that is sustainable in a central way and that we can use on a scheduled way, do scanning. So that's the next period. And that's what I already said. We choose Qualys. We had an RFI, RFP, etc., etc. Qualys was the party to do it with. And what did we do? Because what I already said in the beginning, it was a complex environment, complex infrastructure, a lot of technical teams. So how are you going to do that? At that time, we didn't have a cloud environment, so we have chosen, because of regulations and law, we have chosen for a PCP, a private cloud platform, on our infrastructure internally. And we had a process, it's the 4 steps, and we go out and talk to every technical team, ask what scanner type can we implement. Is it an appliance, physical? Is it virtual? What number of scanners based on the segmentation and the layering of the infrastructure in the network? What's the connectivity model by the production interface, and what is the management interface connectivity? We are doing that quite for a while. So at a certain moment we had 250 plus scanners, network scanners in the network, and also 4 external scanners to scan the external perimeter. But we are still scanning unauthenticated. At a later moment in the journey I will come back to that, because we went to authenticated. But besides the scanning, we also need to do other stuff. Because the SRT, what I already told, in-house developed, was also not sustainable. By pushing Excel sheets to technical teams, we want to provide them with a portal, so that they can log in and only see the vulnerabilities on the assets they are responsible for. So that's the evolution of the SRT Plus tool. And also a priority table was introduced. As you see, it's based on the CVSS scores. Yesterday I've heard that there is that you better can use QDS, but there's also a period in the timeline called future, of short and term future, and there we are going to talk about QDS, and that we are going to incorporate that into the priority table. Okay, sorry. One important thing, because I want to go back. CMDB. CMDB is really pain in the ass. It's not everyone is saying we want to get it complete and we have a complete registration of the assets. It was not the case in our company. Certainly not in 2012 and 2013, 2015. But we are working on that. And from then on, also, we call it ghost scanning. Every scan that found IP addresses and assets that were not registered was pushed to the technical team, and which was responsible for the subnet, and then said, is this an IP address in your subnet? Please register it correctly, and then we make some steps by correctly have a correct CMDB. Okay, the next period, that's quite recent. We got a new CISO, and the new CISO also we created a new security strategy. And the new security strategy has a base for 4 elements. Those are those 4. Doing it together, changing the mindset, adding new skills, and creating a clear vision. This will make a winning security team. Not only the CISO, but the entire organization. And it's especially, I want to pinpoint one, doing it together. Last year I was in the CISO panel here on the QSC, and then I already told it. Doing it together. It's not only the CISO organization pushing the policy, pushing all the KPIs, pushing all the goals. We are doing it now together. We define the goals together. What is doable for the business? What do we think as a leadership of CISO? We're doing it together. That's very important. Also, the last one, I want to pinpoint, creating a clear vision. We have creating a clear vision that resonates to the whole organization, and it exists, and it's also called the 4A strategy. And the 4 A's stand for adaptive, automation, aware, and assure. Because of time, I will leave the details. I can talk a lot of that, but I will go on. Also, besides new security strategy, the Qualys environment evolved. What I already has mentioned is that we had an on-premise environment, and we now get also 2 cloud environments, Azure and AWS. And so the SCP has been introduced. Also, we went from unauthenticated to authenticated scanning. Not completely, because we have network scanners, and we are in the process of implementing a Vault to do also authenticated scanning with the network scanners for all our devices. That will be implemented in Q1, so you will see it back also in the future period of the timeline. But we already installed 22,000 agents and need to go to 40,000. Workstations of employees are excluded. It's only on the backend systems and not on the workstations. We introduced container sensors, because container sensors, there are more and more container platforms. And also, what's very important, hardening of assets, we do it via the Qualys agents and the compliance module of Qualys. That resulted in a lot more insights in vulnerabilities. And as you see in the graph, on the right upper side, we have 760,000 vulnerabilities, divided in several priorities. Prior 1 is the critical one, and then lowering down. But because of doing it together, the right lower graph mentioned what we have fixed in the last 13 weeks. And that's tremendous. So, moving on to the last period, that's short and middle term. What I already was saying, and what is already said yesterday in a lot of meetings, only on CVSS, it's not possible anymore. What is your real risk? So we are embedding QDS and true risk in the vulnerability management process in the priority table. We're also going to use CAR for incident response from the CERT perspective, web application scanning from a red team perspective, so the ethical hackers within KPN. We are implementing a vault, and we are going to do a POC with patch management, and I prefer automatic patch management. So, the last slide. I'm slightly over time, I see, it's a couple of seconds. But in this slide you see from the beginning, 2012 till the end, we had no insight in 2012, so no mean time to detect, no mean time to remediate. And during the journey, it went from detection from years of months to 4 hours by using the agent. And also the mean time to remediate, that was in the beginning also years. It's still struggling in certain areas, but we become in control. And in the future, we will be in control. So that was the journey of KPN and still will be the journey. So if you have questions, you can find me under my name on LinkedIn or other social media. And if you want to chat about something or talk, I'm in a bar or somewhere here around. Thank you very much.